Yellow Line trains have been running again this morning, the first since a November crash. CTA leadership just stopped talking to reporters a short time ago. WBBM's Nancy Hardy joins us live from Skokie with what they had to say.
Cisco CTA President Dorval Carter says in the 7 weeks since the crash that injured 7 workers and dozens of riders, the agency conducted a thorough review before running Yellow Line trains once again.
We would only make this decision after we had absolute confidence that we could do so safely. And we are here to tell you that we have that confidence.
That confidence, he says, comes from interim measures that mean Yellow Line trains will only go 35 miles an hour at their fastest instead of the old 55, and cleaning a stretch of grade level track from any debris where the crash took place. There was a lot Carter did not talk about in the NTSB investigation because he says they are not publicly allowed to until the final report sometime later this year. Reporting live in Skokie at the Oakton station, Nancy Hardy, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Generations of Chicagoans and visitors have encountered the lingering smell of chocolate in the making every time they pass the Blommer Chocolate Company's flagship factory in the River West neighborhood. But the company today confirmed that one of the city's signature aromas is about to go away for good. WBBM's Terry Kester live on the Newsline in front of the factory at Kinsey and Displays.
Yeah, Keith, even on a cold, snowy, windy day like this, you can still smell the chocolate. We just got a whiff of it a moment ago, but not for much longer, as Blommer Chocolate does confirm it is closing its plant here on the 600 block of West Kinsey. Mark Ortman is going to miss that smell of chocolate.
Mr. Ortman, you live in this area. You live right across from Blobbers. The smell is going to disappear, apparently.
Yeah, that's not ideal. It was one of the reasons we moved over to this area, and we have a balcony facing west, so every time we open our patio doors, we get the sweet smell of brownies, so it'll be bittersweet to know that that won't be the case anymore.
Bittersweet. You did not even plan that line, but that was a good one.
It was, yeah.
Several others also telling us they'll miss that smell, as Blommer will now concentrate on its 3 other plants outside of Illinois and move its headquarters to the Merchandise Mart. In the River West neighborhood, Terry Keshner, 105.9 WB.
This week's Difference Maker highlights an organization serving survivors of domestic violence and violent crime on Chicago's West Side. Here's WBBM's Carolina Gearbay.
On a hot and sunny Saturday morning in Little Village, dozens of people are lined up outside of the Helen and Joe Community Foundation's small office space on Kedzie.
Okay. Size 2 and then the newborn.
Inside, Juanita Ariola is unpacking boxes of diapers, wipes, and baby clothes for a monthly diaper and dispensa or pantry distribution.
We always have something for someone here when they walk in and need. We have soap, body soap, toothpaste, you name it, we have it.
Ariola is the director of community engagement at the foundation. Founded in 2019, the nonprofit serves survivors of domestic violence and victims of violent crimes in Little Village.
We offer emergency orders of protection, off-site safe housing. We work very closely with our Chicago Police Department and the Bureau of Detectives. We see that there is a great need for resources. Definitely our Latino community is in great need of all types of resources.
Little Village resident Patricia is picking up diapers and wipes for her 2 young kids.
Se nos hace difícil conseguir los pañales porque están caros.
She says resources are expensive, and since she doesn't have a job, it's been hard to afford basic necessities for her kids. The free items, she says, allow her and her husband to afford other things, like food. For another resident, also named Patricia, the foundation has provided hope.
It's given us positivity that there's people still out there that care about their community and willing to give.
And for Ariola, the mission is only growing.
We hope to accomplish here at the organization a greater outreach on a citywide platform. We hope to continue to grow and move our way up north to wherever there's a need.
Gracias.
Okay, cuídese mucho.
Carolina Garibay, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
A bewitching afternoon was enjoyed by all at the eclipse viewing party, one of thousands across the country. On top of the old Hancock building on Michigan Avenue is one of them. That's where we find WBBM's Mallory Vorbroker.
Crowds gathered shoulder to shoulder, pressing their faces against the glass, taking in the aerial view of the eclipse at 360 Chicago, the observatory at the former John Hancock Center. The deck is on the 94th floor of the building, more than 1,000 feet above the streets of Chicago. Marshall Taylor of Evergreen Park says it's a spiritual experience.
The oddness and just to see the sun stand still and then the moon block and give us a perfect eclipse of what's behind it.
As the city darkened along with the sun, people clustered together, sharing glasses provided by the venue, watching the long shadows build below with excitement and letting out occasional gasps of wonder over the spectacle above. Mallory Vorbroker, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Students and teachers at Morton West High School in Berwyn got a special look and listen at the solar eclipse. WBBM's Terry Keshner was there.
Morton West students gathered on the football field for the eclipse, but some students with disabilities were better off listening. Jen Puffpath is the special education coordinator at Morton West and says blind and visually impaired students used one of 7 light sound devices given to Chicago metro area institutions from Harvard University's astrophysics departments. It converts light into a sound experience so that those students can too experience the solar eclipse.
Harvard was able to give us this device, which is amazing, to include our students into this great event that's happening across the school and allow them to participate in a way that is easy for them to participate.
The device made the solar eclipse sound like this. Terry Keshner, 105.9 WBBM.
Our top local story on News Radio WBBM. We're getting new information tonight about a developing situation at the University of Chicago, where pro-Palestinian activists appear to have briefly occupied a building on campus.
Our top local story on News Radio WBBM. Some students at Northwestern University are joining a nationwide protest calling for a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. WBBM's Nancy Hardy's there. She joins us live with the story.
Rachel, students are chanting Free Palestine while linking arms in a line to prevent police from getting at several tents here at Deering Meadow. The student government voted last night in support of a resolution demanding the university end partnerships that they say legitimize genocide, occupation, and war in Gaza. We spoke to a grad student named Eden who says they've been pushing for these demands for some time.
This is not sort of a new demand. We've repackaged it in this sort of people's resolution, but there have been activists on this campus for decades calling for these exact demands. So the university is pretty well aware of what exactly we've been calling for.
From our vantage point here behind a fence near the sidewalk, we could not see pushing that appears to have happened earlier between police and protesters. Northwestern says in a statement the tents violate university policies, and police and staff are working to get them removed, and students who refuse to remove their tents will be subject to arrest. Reporting live from Northwestern, Nancy Hardy, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Jewish students at the University of Chicago will have a brand new home away from home to enjoy starting next year. The story from WBBM's Andy Dane.
We know that our mission to care for, guide, and nurture the Jewish community has never been more crucial.
Co-director of Chabad at U Chicago, Bela Brackman, speaking to a crowd here at a groundbreaking for the more than $3 million expansion of their on-campus facility.
The past few weeks and months have brought unprecedented challenges to our community. The events since October 7th and the current climate on campus have tested us in ways we could not have anticipated. Despite these hardships, we have vowed to stand strong and not let fear or hatred diminish our spirits.
The new space expected to include a new multi-purpose room, larger kitchen, and renovated spaces for work and socializing. Construction kicks off next month.
May this new building be a beacon of light and a source of comfort for generations to come.
In Hyde Park, Andy Dane, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Here's Bo Duran.
Biggest issue this morning, mine remains the outbound lanes. The Bishop Ford completely shut down from Sibley down to 159th Street. This is all because of an ongoing fatal crash investigation. This crash happened around 2:30 this morning. Crews are still on scene blocking all lanes. No end in sight of this closure.
The cicada invasion has officially arrived in parts of the Chicago area.
They're here. Just a few days ago, they started popping out. There's a whole bunch.
Thousands of cicadas have emerged in the western suburbs, with broods spotted along large trees in Wheaton, Lombard, and Glen Ellen.
They're not the most pleasant things to look at.
Albert Trito says cicadas keep popping up along his front doorway.
Yesterday we swept away the shells, probably about 7 or 8 of them, and today there's probably 14 of them up there. So yeah, when I get back home, I'm going to sweep again.
Most residents we spoke to say they're not looking forward to the sights or sounds that surely lie ahead this summer. Rachel Pearson, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
It's time for sports, and here's Josh Liss.
Hey there, good morning. Just like in their first meeting of the season, the Sky deliver a shot to Caitlin Clark.
coming over. The foul, I believe, to Angel Reese. Yep, across the head.
Yeah, a flagrant foul to Angel Reese's line of 11 points, 13 rebounds. CBS TV, the call. The Sky, 6'3" Reese sending the 6-foot Clark to the ground with a clothesline across the noggin, trying to block Clark's layup.
As a basketball player, I can't control the refs. They affected the game, obviously, a lot tonight.
The Sky falls short of the Fever, 91-83 losers. Reese feeling like Clark gets all the whistles.
I think we went up really strong a lot of times, and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
Accusing the refs of having a special whistle for Clark, who does rule the game with 23 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and no grudges, it sounds like, against Reese for her flagrant foul.
What's going through my mind is I need to make these 2 free throws. That's all I'm thinking about. It's just a part of basketball. It is what it is. Trying to make a play on the ball and get the block. But yeah, I mean, it happens.
First back-to-back wins of Clark's rookie season with Indiana. The Sky dropped their 4th in a row to go 4-9 and host Dallas 11 a.m. Thursday.
Breaking news from News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
A shocking development in court today where Highland Park suspect Robert Cremo III was expected to change his plea. We go live now to WBBM's Nancy Hardy, who was in the courtroom with the latest. Nancy.
Andy, this is not the outcome survivors and victims of the parade shooting were expecting. We just left the courtroom here and saw the shocked look on many of their faces. Lake County prosecutors read what they said was a negotiated plea with Robert Cremo III that would have him spend natural life in prison plus 30 years if he pleaded guilty to 55 charges, including 7 first-degree murder charges. But when it came time for him to agree to it, he initially failed to respond to Judge Victoria Rossetti, instead sitting silently in a wheelchair we have not seen in court before, by the way. There was a brief recess. He talked with his public defenders, and when he came back, he said in a quiet voice, no. So the trial will go forward, scheduled for February of next year. We're expected to hear from maybe some of the survivors, maybe some of their attorneys after here, but as I said, they were shocked by this development. Reporting live from Lake County, Nancy Hardy, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
A family-owned grocery store in West Suburban Forest Park where everybody knows your name is closing down.
There are a million stories on the now almost barren shelves of Edsway, and as loyal, often tearful customers were coming in for perhaps the very last time, Ed Nutley, the Ed in Edsway, shared one of his favorites.
On Christmas that I opened up to just check in the machines, and one of the customers were banging at the door. They forgot to get some spaghetti or something like that. I let him in. He went and got his spaghetti, and then he said, well, hey, I got no money. I said, get me tomorrow. And then the way he went, I seen him Monday. So, yeah, that's how things go.
Edsway has had a tougher time lately competing with larger corporate grocery stores. So now the family-owned gem that was always just a few steps away is saying goodbye. Deborah Holstein has been shopping at Ed's for years.
A lot of us have depended on Ed's, and Ed is a very kind and generous person, as is the rest of his family, and we're going to miss them terribly.
Terry Keshner, 105.9 WBBM.
Chicago Olympian Kennedy Blade says her road to gold at this summer's Paris Games started long ago, like almost before she could walk. Here's WBBM's Rick Gregg with her story.
It's a quest that began unofficially with 2 rambunctious 4-year-olds, Kennedy and her 10 months younger sister, Karina.
My dad taught us boxing when we were very young, but my parents were like, all right, we just got to put them in a sport so that they don't destroy each other. So they put us in jiu-jitsu because it was it's a combat sport. We can get tired because we were very hyper, and both of us together is just insane.
About 2 years later, the grade schoolers transitioned to wrestling. They've worked on mats all over the world, gone to school in Pennsylvania and Arizona. And while Karina has battled injury for the last year, Kennedy is bound for France, the U.S. heavyweight champion at just 20 years old.
I love my country. I love representing red, white, and blue, and being on the stage at the highest level of my sport. But this is different. This is like Olympics.
Blade spent the last few months living near Midway, training at Izzy Style Wrestling in Addison, and lifting in Evanston, where Northwestern women's lacrosse coach Kelly Amante Hiller has become a confidant and mentor.
I have the speed, I have a technique, I have all this stuff. But then when your mentality gets in the way, it can really mess up the whole match. So she has helped me overcome some things.
Regular coach Izzy Martinez will be in Paris with Blades. So will sister Karina, cheering loudly as Blades wrestles her way through the bracket.
One match at a time, just feeling good and just, leaving it all on the mat. That's the game plan.
Rick Gregg, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
As the Republican National Convention begins today, there is heavy security, even heavier than expected. Also, more attention after the attempted assassination of Trump. He'll be nominated by his party later this week. WBBM's political editor Craig Dellamore is in Milwaukee, reporting members of the Illinois GOP delegation are eagerly anticipating the event beginning.
Suburban Bartlett delegate Balwinder Chakar Sahota says she's excited for the start of the RNC because Donald Trump is doing well after the shooting in Pennsylvania. Is she worried about security here? No, she says.
I think I feel okay because of, I believe our security is going to be a little bit more, visual, I think. So I'm not worried too much.
Robin Hands, an alternate delegate from District 10, is still in shock about the attempted assassination.
It's very scary and it's sick. I think the country and the world is so polarized, and I just think he's such a gifted person from God, honestly. I think Trump can turn this polarization around.
She feels there have been so many lies told about Donald Trump, but she says people need to see the truth. Covering the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Craig Dellamore, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
WBBM's Brandon Eisen reports from outside the Fiserv Forum that activists representing a host of issues and organizations have been marching around downtown Milwaukee all day, serving as a counterpoint to the show inside.
It's a beautiful day to march on the RNC.
An organizer with the coalition to march on the RNC encourages a crowd of about 1,000 people to step out from shady areas on a sunny, hot, and humid day in Milwaukee's Red Arrow Park and take to the streets, marching in protest of the Republican agenda within sight and sound of the party's more than 2,000 delegates. Coalition co-chair Omar Flores tells the crowd that there will be another opportunity to gather in Chicago next month for the Democratic National Convention,
where we will be letting the Democrats know that we also see every bomb they drop on Gaza, every family they separate at the border, and every time they choose not to raise the minimum wage.
In Milwaukee, Brandon Eisen, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Meantime, closing night of the Republican National Convention has Illinois delegates and guests in high spirits. WBBM political editor Craig Dellamore has talked with several all week.
Leaders of the Illinois Republican Party say this is their most diverse delegation ever. There do appear to be more delegates of color than in past years, and while some critics of former President Trump have accused him of racism, something he has long denied, there are a number of African-American Illinois delegates and guests supporting him strongly. Community activist and convention guest Bob Israel is here. He voted Trump in 2016, and he's working with and for Republicans.
I'm sick and tired of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has been in control since the Al Capone era, if I'm not correct, at least 90 years. And there is no racist white Republicans in charge in Cook County or Chicago. But why are we at the bottom of all the 19 to 20 economic indicators?
Asked what happens if Republicans don't keep their promises, he says we have to give them a chance. Covering the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Craig Dellamore, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
A man was shot dead in Milwaukee this afternoon when out-of-town police officers opened fire. We get that part of our coverage from WBBM's Brandon Eisen.
The officers observed a subject armed with a knife in each hand engaged in an altercation with another unarmed individual.
Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman holding a press conference more than 6 hours after a homeless veteran in his 40s, identified by those who knew him as Samuel Sharp, was shot dead by police officers from Columbus, Ohio. Chief Norman says 5 officers opened fire on the man.
The officers identified themselves as police officers and made several commands to the suspect to drop the knife. The subject refused these commands and charged at the other individual with the knives.
The Milwaukee chief confirms that the officers are in town as part of the RNC security detail. It's unclear what the next steps will be and will take further communication with the Columbus Police Department. No Milwaukee police officers were present at the time of the fatal shooting.
They should have just biked away.
Alan Chavoya, outreach chair for the Milwaukee Alliance, speaks to us as dozens of people from the community begin to gather at the site of the shooting. Many are angry and tell us that in several community meetings leading up to the RNC, concern was raised about this exact scenario. Out-of-town police patrolling unfamiliar areas. Chavoya says they were promised that wouldn't be the case.
And that's what we were told. We asked Chief Norman, where are they going to be? And we were told repeatedly, Chief Norman is on record saying that they're not going to be here.
In Milwaukee, Brandon Eisen, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
The first day of Lollapalooza has begun, and fans were lining up bright and early for a certain quote-unquote Midwest princess.
Wristbands up, please.
Hundreds of fans lining up for day one of Lollapalooza. More than 170 artists are performing this year, but for day one, there's a clear favorite.
I'm here to see Chappell Roan.
Chappell Roan!
Our queen, Chappell Roan.
Fans say they traveled from places like Toronto, Seattle, and Indiana to see Chappell Roan, who they describe as a gay icon.
I think it's like just a breakthrough in queer pop music for women and like non-men, basically.
Especially a proud lesbian artist who writes about lesbian experiences.
Some fans arrived as early as 8 a.m. to get a front row spot, even though Chappell Roan's set is scheduled for 5 p.m.
Our game plan is we get the security, bags wide open, right? And then we get in, we going straight to Chappell. We're running.
But also feel like that closest that we feel to her as an artist, but be able to have that, physically too.
Carolina Garibay, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Colorectal cancer rates have been increasing in younger people for decades, even though overall cancer rates are declining. All this week's WBBM's Lisa Fielding takes a closer look at what could be the reason for this disturbing trend.
Everyone has a colon, but not everybody likes to talk about it.
When we're children, we celebrate the idea of being able to be potty trained and everything else, and then we forget about it, right? And then just kind of take everything for kind of autopilot, right?
Dr. Joaquin Estrada is chief of colorectal surgery and medical director of digestive health at Illinois Masonic Hospital.
Particularly when it comes to colon cancer. It's one of these diseases that are a little bit closeted.
Over the years, his typical patient, people over 50, in for recommended screenings. But recently, he says, it's been a different story.
We're seeing more and more younger patients, whereas before it was like, wow, this patient's 33, this patient's 35. And it would just kind of be a one-off situation. We'd often chalk it up to a family history or something like that. But now we're seeing patients at those ages without family histories and sometimes even younger, and it's becoming more common.
Dr. Estrada says oftentimes it's a head scratcher.
And you start seeing more and more young patients come in, and you're like, wow, this is not what they taught us in medical school.
Colon cancer doesn't always show symptoms, and current guidelines beginning screenings at 45. But Dr. Estrada says too many people put off the critical test for a myriad of reasons.
If we catch it early enough, not only is it curable, but it's preventable.
Coming up tomorrow, a Chicago woman shares her story of a routine screening that turned into stage 3, which turned into a new mission to help others. Lisa Fielding, 105.9 WBBM.
Thousands of people are in Chicago for the Democratic National Convention, but some local restaurants say business is kind of slow.
It's the start of lunch hour at Pittsfield Cafe, which sits on Washington Street just off Michigan Avenue in the Loop. Normally, the eatery would be packed with hungry customers.
But as you see, there's a lot of empty spots.
Manager Marcel Rodriguez says she expected a lot more foot traffic during the DNC. She even brought in extra staff to prepare for the rush.
I don't know what's going on. I think the people stay at home, and that's it.
Rodriguez says sales are about half of what they usually are on any given day. Some other restaurants in the Loop tell WBBM business is down significantly. Rachel Pearson, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
United Center neighbors continue to feel the impact of the Democratic National Convention in town this week. That story from WBBM's Brandon Ison.
It's just unbelievable how people get together for things that they believe in. And it's a good thing. To me, it's a good thing.
Julia lives in the West Haven Park building at the corner of Lake and Walcott. We spoke to her as thousands of demonstrators made their way under the L tracks on Lake Street, right past her doorstep. A wall of Chicago police officers between her and them. She says in addition to not feeling any sense of fear from the demonstrations this week, that in her opinion, Chicago police have done an excellent job of keeping the peace.
They've been awesome. They have been awesome. They have been patient. They have been alert and keeping us safe and very respectful to the protesters.
And while many nearby residents did enjoy a little free speech and added excitement, there were many who also found the demonstrations disruptive and confusing, particularly when it came down to parking and the use of a small neighborhood park. Brandon Eisen, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
On day 3 of the Democratic Convention, several local vendors are inviting delegates and volunteers to let out their creative side at McCormick Place.
From festive DNC-themed manicures,
they are gorgeous,
to bedazzled Kamala Harris iron-on patches.
We have one that says "I'm with her." Then we have the pink and green because that symbolizes the AKA sorority that she's in.
To make your own DNC Harris friendship bracelets.
I have DNC spelled out with some stars and then some red, white, and blue beads.
There's no shortage of creative ways to commemorate the DNC at Dempalooza, which features more than 75 Chicago vendors, including Nail Issues, Patch Party Club, and Denia Designs for You, which are also all Black and women-owned. Ebony Anderson of Nail Issues says arts and crafts and manicures are more than just some fun ways to pass the time.
It's important to be here to showcase more minority-owned businesses, especially Black-owned businesses by women. We're a part of history.
Carolina Garibay, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
WBBM News Radio, Election Central. Complete coverage from the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago.
The first Black woman to have a seat in the U.S. Senate is getting ready to watch Kamala Harris accept her party's nomination. WBBM's political editor Craig Dellamore reports from the United Center.
Kamala Harris was not the first Black woman to be elected to the United States Senate. That was Chicago's Carol Mosley Braun, who was an Illinois delegate to this convention. And Braun says she would have followed Joe Biden to the gates of hell. But he has chosen not to run again and has endorsed Kamala Harris, and she's ready to do everything in her power to get her elected. But how do you sustain the momentum that seems to be here?
That's the issue, and that's what she's going to be grappling with in the next coming days and weeks. Because 77 days, right, before we get there. But I think it'll be sustained by the people in this room. I think the enthusiasm is sincere and deep and genuine. So that being said, I believe that we can do it in November.
She says she's happy Kamala Harris may be the first one to cross that presidency finish line. At the United Center, Craig Dellamore, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Our top local story on News Radio WBBM. Democratic National Convention delegates are starting to head home today after being energized over the nomination of Kamala Harris as president. WBBM's Bernie Tafoya talked to some of them at Midway Airport.
The convention was nothing short of amazing.
Daryl Parks is returning home to Tallahassee, Florida to campaign for Kamala Harris and other Democrats. Every delegate we spoke with had nothing but positive things to say, not only about the convention, but about Chicago and its people. Patrick McGill of Washington, D.C. sampled some of the great food, biked along the lakefront, and went to Wrigley Field.
An amazing city. I had gone to the convention in 2012 in Charlotte, and that city could barely handle all the incoming people from around the country. Chicago handled it without a hiccup.
Juanita Martinez of Eagle Pass, Texas, a key point in the immigration debate, wanted to thank Chicago for its hospitality.
I just want to send out a big old thank you. Thank you.
We'll be back. We'll be back.
Just to visit.
Yeah, just to visit.
We'll be back just to visit.
Another Texas delegate also loved the weather. And he said he's going back to triple-digit temps. At Midway Airport, Bernie Tafoya, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
Well, we're experiencing another day of extreme heat, but for some of the thousands of new arrivals sent to Chicago from the southern border, this week's wave of potentially dangerous temperatures has been one more challenge to overcome.
It's been 8 months since asylum seekers, many from Venezuela, were bused up to Chicago by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. We spoke to one family standing outside of a shelter where a few vendors were selling cold drinks and snacks. We asked the father of 4 what he's been doing during the heat wave. I've just been walking a lot and drinking water. I've also been applying to a lot of jobs, but with my situation of being a migrant, it's hard to get hired. The youngest of the family, just 4 years old. We asked what the situation was like inside the shelter. Normally you can go in and out freely, but inside it's crowded and you're trapped in one room with your whole family. Sarah Herrera, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
This week's Made in Chicago features a lemonade stand with humble roots, which has been delighting Chicagoans and visitors for 70 years.
Can I get a lemonade?
Since 1954, Mario's Italian Lemonade at 1068 West Taylor Street has been serving up the sweet summer staple to generations of customers, including David Buffer and Michonne Davis-Ayan.
Great flavors and the great prices.
It's just wonderful. The flavors taste really natural, and you really just can't get this everywhere.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed how popular we are.
Mario DiPaolo is the Mario behind Mario's Italian Lemonade. Well, one of them, his late father, also named Mario, was the one who came up with the idea of a lemonade stand.
My father just wanted to give me an activity. I'd squeeze lemons, get sugar, get black ice and rock salt, and turn it for about 2 hours. And lemonade came out, and we sold it. It was 2 cents.
As for how the lemonade evolved into other flavors, Mario says one day, long ago, he and his sister were working at the stand and having a snowball fight using the ice from snow cones when one of the flavored snowballs fell into the lemonade.
Now it's red, and we turned it and we tasted it. I go, this is good. This is good. I go, Dad, taste this. And he goes, hey, bon, hey, bon.
They now serve about 25 flavors, and Mario couldn't be prouder of the little lemonade stand his father built.
You know, it's my whole life.
And now his children are carrying on the family legacy.
My 2 sons, I named them both Mario because I didn't know who would lead the way.
He even tried to name his daughter Mario.
He wanted to name me Mario Davina, and my mom vetoed that, which I really appreciate.
Just for the legacy. Yeah. You're all Mario. You're all Mario.
Mario DiPaolo and Mario's Italian Lemonade, made in Chicago. Mai Martinez, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
It's 12:58. Traffic and weather together on the 8s, and here's Neil Fiorito.
All right, a couple of big delays here, Rob. We're going to start on the Tri-State Tollway as you make your way northbound approaching the Hinsdale Oasis. Accident there in the left lane. Southbound is stop and go past the Grand Avenue curve to before the ramp to westbound I-88. That is a crash now in the left lane. Multiple vehicles involved in this one. We're hearing with some injuries as well.
Many Chicagoans are surprised by the re-election of former President Trump as our next president. WBBM's Nancy Hardy has been out talking to people in your Union station and joins us live on the Newsline now.
Joe from Itasca says he's going to reserve judgment on what a second Trump presidency will look like, but he is scratching his head today.
I'm sort of surprised. I would have thought some of the issues would have made more sense, but like abortion, for example, but that seemed to fade away. So I guess it really was the economy.
It was the economy for a commodities broker we spoke to who says he's happy about what a Trump win means for the stock market. One woman in passing said she was sickened by the results. Another man says he's hesitant to see what Republican control of both chambers of Congress as well as the White House will mean for the country. He says it's not supposed to be that way. Reporting live outside Union Station, Nancy Hardy, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
A Vietnam War veteran who dropped out of Leo Catholic High School at the age of 18 and joined the Army given his diploma today during an observance of Veterans Day.
For the ramparts we watch.
The Leo Choir performing in the front courtyard where a war memorial contains the names of 75 former students and where Frederick Arana, now 78, received his diploma from the principal, Dr. Shaka Rawls.
Welcome our newest graduate at Leo High School, class of 1965.
You must be feeling pretty good.
Very good, very good. Leo has a special place in my heart. Going into the Army, it helped me a lot as far as being responsible and serving my country.
Your son is responsible for this. He reached out to Leo?
Yeah. I know my father, he accomplished a lot in life. He went from a high school dropout. He went through the military and war. He came back, became an assistant principal, and then a principal. But his biggest regret is that he never graduated from high school.
Mr. Arana had hoped to run into an old friend here. He found his name on the memorial. On the south side, Mike Krauser, News Radio 105.9 WBBM.
This week's Difference Maker uses music to bring back memories. WBBM's Terry Keshner has the story.
Good Memories Choir is a choir for people in early stage dementia.
Sandy Siegel Miller is program director of the Good Memories Choir, which is made up of those with dementia, their care partners, and a team of volunteers.
So the choir is made up of, one-third, that composition.
Good Memories Choir is an offshoot of the Sounds Good Choir, the Chicago area's largest no-audition choral group for those 55 and older. The Good Memories Choir rehearses and performs at the historic Fourth Presbyterian Church at Michigan and Chestnut. Sandy co-founded the choir along with her husband, Jonathan. He says scientific research shows that music sparks memory.
These musical memories are encoded deeply in the brain and in lots of different parts of the brain. And when some parts of the brain start to go, all the other parts kick in.
Bruce Calder is one of the singers.
I haven't sung since I was in grade school, and it's just a wonderful feeling singing.
His wife, Elspeth Revere.
Everybody is so warm and supportive and non-judgmental and encouraging, and yet we make music. Somehow we make music.
The beautiful sounds of making a difference. Terry Keschner, 105.9 WBBM.
As WBBM marks 100 years on the air, we've been digging through the archive where our Josh Liss stumbled upon a 1980 interview with George Halas, the Bears' legendary founder and owner. Today, we've got the first part of our series in the words of George Halas.
It's July 24th, 1915 in Chicago. The SS Eastland is docked along the river ready to ferry passengers. A 20-year-old George Halas, the future co-founder of the NFL, has a ticket.
And it so happened that I was delayed at home, so I missed the first boat, but I was going to catch the second. When I arrived at the dock, there was the Eastland, turned over on its side, and many hundreds died in there. I was scheduled for that particular boat at that time.
844 passengers and crew members died when the Eastland tipped over. Why was Halas going? A company picnic and a baseball game. Only a stroke of brotherly luck, he once explained, kept him away from the Eastland disaster.
My brother Frank insisted I go up and say a prayer or two before I departed for Michigan City. Then he sent me out, all right, kid, have a good day, hit a home run for me. And that caused me to be late.
Halas was working a summer job for Western Electric, 5 years away from co-founding the Decatur Staleys, the future Chicago Bears. Halas told the story in 1980, recently unearthed from the WBBM archives. Josh Liss, News Radio WBBM.